She's already told you what she wants. You just didn't know how to listen. There are women out here, right now, in public, broadcasting exactly what they want, and most men don't even notice. These aren't subtle hints buried in text messages. These are live, in-person behavioral signals happening in broad daylight, 3 specific behaviors tied to hidden desire that a man with the right awareness catches instantly. If you've ever felt like you were missing something in how women actually communicate attraction, you were right. And this video is about to fix that. What you're about to learn isn't theory pulled from a textbook. It's real, observable human behavior, decoded through the lens of female psychology and modern dating psychology. And once you see it, you simply cannot unsee it. If this kind of content genuinely adds value to your life, do me a solid and drop a like, leave a comment, and share this with a man in your circle who needs to hear it. Let's grow together. Disguised desire. The 3 public behaviors of women who are desperately craving intimacy. Most men walk through life completely blind to what's happening right in front of them, not because they're dumb, but because nobody ever taught them how to read the room, or more specifically, how to read her. Understanding female psychology isn't about manipulation, it's about awareness. And awareness is power. Right now, there are women sending out signals so clear, so loud, that once a man knows what to look for, he'll never unsee them. The question is, are you one of the men actually paying attention? Here's something most guys never consider. Women rarely say exactly what they want, especially in public. Society has conditioned them to mask certain desires, to wrap them in behavior rather than words. That's where behavioral signals come in. These are the unspoken cues, the small, almost invisible actions that reveal far more than any conversation ever could. And the wild part? These signals happen in broad daylight, in coffee shops, gyms, grocery stores, everywhere. You've probably seen them dozens of times without ever realizing what you were looking at. Think about the last time you were out somewhere and noticed a woman acting differently. Maybe she laughed a little too loud. Maybe she kept adjusting herself for no obvious reason. Maybe she made eye contact just a second longer than normal. These aren't random quirks. These are nonverbal cues, and they carry a weight that most men completely underestimate. Modern dating psychology makes it crystal clear. Behavior is always more honest than words. Women's bodies and actions speak a language that's been there all along, waiting for the right man to decode it. Now, before going any further, let's get something straight. This isn't about objectifying women or reducing them to a checklist. This is about psychological awareness, the kind that gives a man an edge in understanding human nature at a deeper level. The men who thrive in their social and romantic lives aren't necessarily the richest or the best looking. They're the ones with emotional intelligence enough to observe, interpret, and respond to what's actually happening around them. That skill? It's learnable. And what comes next is going to seriously upgrade how a man sees the world. There's a concept in social dynamics called the attention economy. In simple terms, it means that where a woman directs her focus consistently and repeatedly, reveals what she's emotionally and physically invested in. When a woman is experiencing a spike in desire patterns, her attention becomes almost magnetic towards certain stimuli. She starts positioning herself, adjusting her nonverbal cues, and behaving in ways that are designed, even subconsciously, to attract. The 3 behaviors about to be revealed are direct expressions of this. And behavior number 1, it's one most men laugh off as nothing. Subconscious signals are fascinating because the person sending them usually has zero idea they're doing it. That's what makes them so powerful and so honest. When a woman's desire is running high, her body starts to override her social filter. She touches her neck more. She mirrors movements without thinking. She creates reasons to be physically closer than the situation actually requires. These micro-behaviors are rooted in primal attraction psychology, and they don't lie. Once a man learns to recognize them, casual interactions start to feel like having access to a conversation happening just beneath the surface. Here's where it gets really interesting. Most of these behaviors don't happen in private, they happen publicly, and that's actually the key detail. Public settings create a kind of social pressure that amplifies everything. When a woman lets her guard down in a public space, when she stops caring about appearances and starts letting hidden desire leak through her actions, that's a signal that's almost impossible to fake. The 3 behaviors in this video are all tied to that specific window, that unguarded, unfiltered moment when desire stops hiding and starts showing. And knowing what to look for changes everything. Let's talk about the first behavior, and it's one that happens so openly, so casually, that most men walk right past it without a second thought. It's called proximity anchoring. This is when a woman consistently positions herself physically close to a man, not because the space requires it, but because something inside her is pulling her there. It's one of the clearest expressions of desire patterns in action. She'll find a reason to stand near him, to sit at the adjacent seat. to coincidentally end up in his orbit again and again. It's not random, it's biology talking. Here's a real-world example. Imagine a guy at a bookstore just browsing. A woman nearby keeps appearing in the same aisle, picking up books she doesn't seem particularly interested in, glancing over without making it obvious. She moves when he moves. She lingers when he lingers. From the outside, it looks like coincidence. But through the lens of behavioral analysis, it's a textbook display of proximity anchoring driven by subconscious signals. She's not running a strategy. Her nervous system is literally gravitating toward what it wants. That's the raw, unfiltered truth of how attraction operates. Now, a man with a sharp masculine frame doesn't panic or overthink when he notices this. He observes. He stays calm. He lets the signal land without immediately reacting. That composure, that steady, grounded presence, is itself incredibly attractive, and it's a core pillar of male self-mastery. The irony is that the more relaxed and centered a man remains when he picks up on these signals, the more he amplifies the very dynamic she's already feeling. Stillness in a man communicates confidence. And confidence, in the language of sexual polarity, is magnetic beyond measure. The second behavior is subtler, but once a man sees it, it becomes impossible to unsee. It lives in the realm of nonverbal cues, and it's all about touch, specifically self-touch. When a woman's desire is heightened, her hands tend to gravitate toward her own body in very specific ways. She touches her collarbone, runs fingers along her arm, plays with her hair repeatedly, or rests a hand on her thigh. These aren't nervous habits, they're subconscious signals of heightened physical awareness. Her body is essentially rehearsing sensation. Attraction psychology has documented this pattern extensively, and it's one of the most reliable tells in the entire behavioral spectrum. What makes self-touch so telling is the context in which it happens. If a woman is doing this while talking to a man she's clearly comfortable with, that's one thing. But if she starts doing it while near a man she's just met, or while glancing in his direction across a room, that shifts everything. That's hidden desire expressing itself through the body before the mind has even decided what to do about it. Power dynamics in attraction often hinge on exactly these kinds of micro-moments. The man who catches them, without flinching or reacting awkwardly, is the one who holds the frame, every single time. Understanding these behaviors also requires a man to develop something deeper than just surface-level observation. It requires psychological decoding, the ability to read the why behind the what. Why is she touching her neck? Why did she just move 2 steps closer? Why does her eye contact feel different from everyone else's in the room? These questions, when a man starts asking them naturally and consistently, rewire how he experiences social environments entirely. Suddenly, the world becomes a lot more readable. And that shift in perception? That's the beginning of real self-awareness for any man serious about his growth. Here's something that separates the average guy from the man who truly understands social dynamics. The average guy waits for verbal confirmation. He needs her to say something before he believes the signal is real. But the man operating with a red pill mindset knows that by the time words arrive, the moment has often already passed. Behavior always precedes language in the attraction sequence. Women communicate desire through action long before they're willing to vocalize it. And the man who has trained his male perception to catch the action, not just the words, is always operating several steps ahead of the game. Now comes the third behavior, and honestly, this one is the most powerful of all 3. It's also the most publicly visible, which makes it almost ironic that so many men miss it completely. It's called validation mirroring. This is when a woman starts actively seeking a specific man's reaction to everything she does in a shared space. She tells a joke and looks directly at him to see if he laughs. She makes a point in a group conversation and checks his face first for approval. That pattern, that consistent emotional check-in, is one of the loudest behavioral signals a woman can send without saying a single word. Validation dynamics are deeply rooted in female psychology. When a woman is experiencing strong desire towards someone, that person becomes her emotional anchor in the room. His opinion, his reaction, his energy, all of it starts to matter more than anyone else's. She's not doing this consciously as a tactic. It's an emotional and physiological response to attraction. A man who understands attention economy knows that when he becomes the person a woman consistently checks in with through her eyes and expressions, he hasn't just caught her attention. He's occupied a space in her mind that she can't easily shake loose. That's significant. And here's where it gets layered even further. Validation mirroring often comes packaged with another signal: increased effort. She suddenly becomes more animated, more expressive, more on when he's around. Her laugh is a bit louder. Her stories are a bit more colorful. Her energy lifts almost visibly. This isn't performance for the room, it's performance for him, even if she'd never admit it out loud. Recognizing this pattern is a direct product of strong emotional intelligence, and once a man connects these dots, his ability to navigate status perception in any social environment shifts permanently. And speaking of shifts, Quick pause right here, because if this content is literally rewiring how you see the world around you, you need to hit that like button right now before you forget, and subscribe to this channel immediately, because what's coming next goes even deeper and you cannot afford to miss it. This is not the kind of content that sits around waiting for you. Let's keep going. Now, let's talk about a man named Marcus. 29 years old, decent job, good guy by every measure. But Marcus had a blind spot. He'd been in social situations dozens of times where women were clearly interested, and he'd walked away thinking nothing was there. He told his friend once, "I just don't get signals, man." Sound familiar? Marcus wasn't unperceptive. He just hadn't been taught the language. He didn't know what behavioral signals looked like in real life, so he kept misreading every chapter of a story that was being written right in front of him. That changed one evening at a work event. At that work event, Marcus noticed a colleague doing something he'd never paid attention to before. Every time he spoke in the group, she'd glance at him first when she responded, even if she was technically answering someone else. She'd touched her collarbone twice during their conversation, and at one point, she'd moved from across the room to stand just slightly within his personal space, with zero practical reason to be there. Old Marcus would have shrugged it off, but this time, something clicked. He recognized the nonverbal cues, stayed grounded in his masculine frame, and simply engaged with calm confidence. The rest of the evening unfolded in a way he hadn't experienced in years. Marcus's story isn't unique. It's actually the story of every man who finally stops sleepwalking through his social life and starts operating with psychological awareness. The moment he stopped waiting for verbal confirmation and started trusting what behavioral analysis was showing him, everything changed. He didn't become aggressive or presumptuous. He became present, fully tuned in. And that presence, that grounded, observant, emotionally steady energy, is exactly what masculine presence looks like when it's operating at full capacity. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's felt by everyone in the room, especially her. Here's a practical step any man can take starting today. Begin training observational awareness in low-stakes environments. Coffee shops, bookstores, and social gatherings are perfect. Simply sit, observe, and start noting nonverbal cues without judgment or agenda. YouTube channels like Charisma on Command and books like The Art of Reading People by Henrik Fexeus are genuinely solid starting points for building this skill systematically. The goal isn't to become a predator reading a room. The goal is to become a man with psychological decoding sharp enough to navigate human connection with clarity, confidence, and complete self-possession. That's the real prize here. There's a layer to all of this that most content completely ignores, and it's the internal game. Because recognizing behavioral signals is only half the equation. The other half is what a man does with that recognition. Does he freeze? Does he overreact? Does he immediately try to make a move and blow the entire dynamic? Or does he stay composed, grounded, and let the tension build naturally? That internal response is where emotional control lives, and it's the variable that separates the man who capitalizes on these moments from the one who fumbles them every single time. The signal was never the problem. The response was. Emotional control in high attraction situations is genuinely one of the most underrated skills a man can develop. When a woman is sending subconscious signals of desire, the environment becomes charged. Most men either go completely blind to it or get so activated by it that they start acting out of character. They talk too much. They try too hard. They tip their hand way too early. But the man operating from male self-mastery does something radically different. He slows down. He breathes. He lets her feel the weight of the moment without rushing to fill the silence. That restraint? That's not weakness, that's power. Think of sexual polarity like a magnet. The stronger the contrast between masculine steadiness and feminine emotional energy, the stronger the pull between them. When a man reacts to hidden desire by becoming visibly eager or anxious, he collapses that polarity instantly. The tension dissolves, the attraction cools. But when he holds his frame, stays present, and responds with measured confidence, that polarity intensifies. She feels it. Her body registers it. And suddenly, those three behaviors, the proximity, the self-touch, the validation mirroring, they all escalate. Because she senses she's found a man who actually gets it. And that's rare. This is also where status perception plays a crucial role. In any social environment, women are constantly, unconsciously, assessing the status of the men around them. Not just financial status, but social status. How does he carry himself? How does he respond under pressure? Does he seek approval, or does he project quiet authority? A man who has done the inner work of male self-mastery naturally radiates a kind of effortless status that has nothing to do with a title or a bank account. It's a frequency. And women tuned into attraction psychology will feel that frequency long before any conversation even begins. Let's get even more practical for a second. One of the most effective ways to build masculine presence in real social settings is to practice what's called grounded engagement. This means entering a room without immediately seeking stimulation or validation. Stand still for a moment, observe. Let the environment come to you rather than rushing toward it. Men who study modern dating psychology through resources like David Data's The Way of the Superior Man, or coaches like Corey Wayne on YouTube will recognize this principle immediately. It's not arrogance, it's rootedness. And rootedness, in the language of power dynamics, communicates everything worth communicating. What's also worth understanding is that these three behaviors, proximity anchoring, self-touch, and validation mirroring, rarely show up in isolation. They tend to cluster. When a woman's desire is genuinely high, multiple signals fire at the same time, layering on top of each other in a way that creates a very clear picture for the man trained to see it. Behavioral analysis teaches that clusters are always more reliable than single signals. One glance means nothing. One glance combined with physical proximity, self-touch, and consistent emotional check-ins, that's a pattern. And patterns in female psychology are almost never accidental. They're the story she's telling without words. There's something quietly profound about reaching this level of self-awareness and how a man moves through the world, because it doesn't just affect romantic situations, it bleeds into everything. Business meetings, friendships, family dynamics. Once a man starts developing psychological decoding as a genuine skill, he begins to notice the emotional subtext underneath every human interaction. He becomes harder to manipulate, easier to respect, and far more effective in every room he enters. The red pill mindset, at its healthiest and most mature, isn't about cynicism, it's about clarity. And clarity, paired with character, is an unstoppable combination. Here's the final piece of this puzzle, and it might be the most important one. All of this knowledge, every signal decoded, every behavior identified, every pattern recognized, means absolutely nothing if a man hasn't done the foundational work on himself first. Attraction psychology is not a shortcut. It's a reward. It rewards the man who has invested in his emotional intelligence, sharpened his psychological awareness, and committed to becoming someone genuinely worth being attracted to. The signals women send are real, but the man who receives them with grace, confidence, and integrity is the man who has already done the quiet, unglamorous work that most men avoid entirely. Because here's the truth that ties everything together. Women aren't mysteries to be solved. They're human beings operating on instinct, emotion, and deep-seated desire patterns that have existed long before modern dating apps or social media ever complicated the conversation. The man who understands social dynamics at this level doesn't chase. He doesn't perform. He doesn't beg for clarity that was never going to come through words anyway. He simply becomes the kind of man whose masculine presence naturally draws out what was already there, waiting beneath the surface. And that, right there, is the quiet, powerful art of reading what was never meant to be hidden. So here's the real question. Now that you know what to look for, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to keep walking through life missing signals that were never hidden in the first place? Or are you going to start showing up as the kind of man who's actually present, grounded, and aware enough to recognize what's right in front of him? Because awareness without action is just entertainment. And you didn't watch this far just to be entertained. The men who apply psychological decoding, who sharpen their emotional intelligence, who commit to genuine male self-mastery, those are the men who stop feeling confused by women and start feeling confident in every room they walk into. That shift doesn't happen by accident, it happens by choice, and that choice starts right now. So here's your challenge. Take one of these three behaviors, proximity anchoring, self-touch, or validation mirroring, and consciously observe it in your next social environment. Just one. See what you notice. Then come back here and drop a comment telling me which behavior hit hardest for you. Or better yet, leave this line below. I see the signals now. That's your declaration. That's your starting point. Leave it in the comments and let's build this community of aware, grounded, self-mastered men together. And listen, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Genuinely. You didn't just watch a video today. You invested in yourself, in your awareness, in your growth. That takes a certain kind of man. And the fact that you're here, all the way to the end, tells me everything I need to know about who you're becoming. If this opened your eyes even a little, please hit that like button. It helps more men find this content who truly need it. Share this video with a friend, a brother, somebody in your life who's been sleepwalking through his social world. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because what's coming next goes even deeper into male self-mastery, modern dating psychology, and the kind of red pill mindset that actually builds men up rather than tearing the world down. The signals were always there. Now you see them. Use that wisely.